We're talking about two commodities that have seen huge volatility and price moves over the last couple of years. These are commodities that have flown under the radar in mainstream news, but important nonetheless. Joining us today is Kal Malhi. He is the CEO of Hertz Energy. We'll be talking about his projects as well. Welcome to the show. Kal, good to see you.
Good morning, David. Nice to be on with you.
The two commodities I was referencing, lithium, uranium, both covering different aspects of the economy, both critical in our society. Lithium has its own story. Uranium has its own story. Let's talk about lithium first, why we need it, why society needs it. And the price of lithium, I mentioned, reaching new all-time highs in October 2022, November 2022. It spiked to more than 3 times its previous level right before then, but it's basically come back down to its pre 2021 levels, right? What happened there? Why was there this huge squeeze up to a new high never before seen, and then this collapse in the price subsequently?
David, I think what we're seeing over the last, or at least the last decade or so, is a shift to clean energy sources to power energy, and that's true for electric vehicles as well as cell phones and other gadgets. So we've seen lithium come on as a commodity of our generation. It's a fairly new commodity. It wasn't really known up until recently, and the supply of lithium was quite restricted. And that's why we saw a bubble. Once the demand for lithium came, the supply could not meet that demand. And that's why we saw the price escalate quite severely. And then we've seen some new supply come on. But I believe the story of lithium prices and the demand for lithium is here to stay. It's a commodity of our generation. It's not going away. And we will need lithium supplies going forward.
From what I understand, there was a huge shortage in 2021, like you said, all throughout 2020 and 2021, leading up to 2022. But then, despite these challenges, there's been a huge glut of supply coming in online as new projects developed right after this demand boom that you talked about. Right now, the industry is seemingly facing an oversupply. Let's address that issue. How would you respond to that?
David, I know this is my thesis and it's up for question, but what we saw was lithium was mainly consumed in China in those years, 2021, 2022. A lot of the electric vehicle battery infrastructure was based in China, and all the miners were selling the lithium to China. And when the demand kind of skyrocketed, the price went up. But what we've seen in the last year or so, we've seen a collapse in the Chinese economy. The Chinese economy is hurting quite bad, and the demand for lithium out of China has dried up, while the supply, where miners have increased, has come up. But I don't believe that's a long-term valuation for lithium. Lithium consumption is being built around the world with new battery plants around each continent, each country, the Canada, US, Europe, where governments are funding big electric vehicle battery plants, which will be consuming lithium going forward.
Some industry analysts predict that the demand for lithium will continue to rise sharply, more or less in line with your thesis. On the other side of the debate, though, Kal, is the argument that demand for EVs will start to slow, at least not rise at the same pace as they were before, primarily because EVs have infrastructure issues. Consumer demand for EV is less popular these days. Perhaps hybrid is a better solution. Anyway, where do you stand on this debate?
David, I believe the industry has committed itself to electric vehicle and lithium powered batteries. If we look at Tesla, Honda, GM, they've all got electric vehicle batteries that are long-term commitments with billions of dollars poured into it. Governments are also supporting that with billions of dollars in government grants to build electric vehicle battery plants. On top of that, there's mandates by governments to eliminate gas-powered vehicles on the road. So I think that all supports the thesis that we are going to be an electric vehicle generation here. And that generation shift will go through some spurts here, ups and downs, but I think it's here to stay.
Okay. Lithium producers, this is an article from Mining Technology dated June 2023. Lithium producers warn of a global supply shortage for electric vehicle demand. This is more or less in line with what we're talking about. Lithium has fast become a top commodity as countries move to ramp up EV uptake in place of the traditional combustion engine to meet global climate challenges. Now, it says here, analysts are predicting a deficit as high as 768,000 tons by 2030. Is that in line with your estimates? I mean, do you agree with the general view that there's going to be a deficit going forward?
David, that view is very much in line with what I just stated in my previous comments, that we're an electric vehicle generation. That electric vehicle generation isn't going away, and the demand for lithium is here to stay. So that coincides with my belief that the funding that's going into a lithium battery infrastructure is not going to disappear on us.
Where's most of the lithium mined around the world right now?
Until recently, most of the lithium was hard rock mined in Australia. Australia had a bit of a stronghold on it, but with the explosion in price, we've seen exploration for lithium go outside of Australia, mostly to Latin America for brine projects. But recently, we've seen a big lithium district, or as some people call it, James Bay, Quebec, as being almost a Saudi Arabia of hard rock lithium with the recent discoveries that we've seen in James Bay.
This came in from the news earlier this year in March. President Joe Biden's administration has conditionally agreed to loan more than $2 billion to the company building a controversial lithium mine in Nevada, with the largest known U.S. deposit of the metal critical to making batteries for electric vehicles, key to his renewable energy agenda. Why is the government of the U.S. stepping in to directly subsidize the lithium industry?
Again, David, that's again the controlling supply chains, infrastructure, industry for electric vehicles and electric vehicle batteries, and the commodities that will supply that on the continental basis. Until recently, China had a stronghold, and there's a big movement for each continent or each country to have their own supply chains for electric vehicles. And the US is moving in a big way. Canada is also moving in a big way in government grants. And the company you speak of, it's funny, it's a Canadian company that started with an exploration project that's come to this stage now.
What is your response when you read a story like this that the government is stepping in to loan projects? I mean, first of all, do projects need loans from the government? And second, what does this signal in terms of the government's, I guess, desperation to get a hold of this?
Well, David, as the saying goes, the government is putting their money where their mouth is. Their mouth is saying we want to eliminate gas-powered vehicles. So now by funding projects like this, they're backing up that statement by encouraging supply to sustain what they're wanting, which is non-gas powered, electric powered vehicles on the roads. I believe 2030 is the next target, and those targets are going up, and they're mandated by the government. So this is very much putting their money where their mouth is by supporting their demands of the change in the industry.
We'll talk about uranium next, but I'm just wondering, because you have your project in Canada, which we'll talk about, has the Canadian government made similar moves?
Yes, very much so, David. In mineral exploration, flow-through capital is a big incentive for companies to go out and look for deposits. And Canada has gone through what's called a critical minerals strategy, where they will provide heavy tax incentive for investors to fund lithium exploration or critical minerals, aside from just lithium, but mostly it's been lithium, and lots of flow-through or tax incentives have gone into that industry.
How is the government juggling this need for critical metals, but also addressing the concern from environmentalist lobby groups that this is a very dirty industry and it should be, contained?
Lithium is not a dirty industry, David. It's very much of a clean energy, and the
Well,
mining of
it's mining, right? I mean, all mining, according to the environmentalists, I'm just, parroting what they're saying is dirty. So,
I'm biased, David. I believe hard rock mining is not a dirty industry. It's got new technologies that have come on board. It is hydropower intensive, but that's the only dirty aspect I see. There isn't anything where it's going to leave contaminated waterways or anything like that with some other commodities.
okay, how is lithium mining cleaner than, let's say, some other minerals?
Well, there are other minerals, and David, I'm not a mining engineer. I'm not a geologist, but the hard rock lithium is a fairly simple process of extraction, and the only real input is heavy use of hydropower and limited water resources, and the end result is a clean, clean material left over. There is nothing toxic left over.
Let's suppose, just imagine for a minute, that discovery of lithium and extraction of lithium is not successful in North America. but the US and Canada still needs access to this critical mineral. What happens next?
David, that's a what if scenario, and I don't believe we're going there. We've seen the lithium mining is successful in Canada currently, and we've seen very big discoveries happen in James Bay, Canada, that are being supported by the government and that will come online as operating mines.
Do you need the lithium price, or does the industry need the lithium price much higher to begin production?
Any business, David, the producers want the price to be higher, but I think we'll find a medium where the lithium will be a commodity of our generation, just like gold, silver, zinc. And there will be a medium that makes mining of lithium economic. If it's not economic, then the supply chains will not have their supply. So that medium will be found, and mining for lithium will be a profitable economic entity.
Okay. Well, let's talk about uranium now, another mineral that your company is involved with. The uranium price has skyrocketed over the last 2 years. It's at one point reached over $100 a pound earlier this year. It's now come down to about 90, which is still very high compared to where it was 2 years ago, which was only around $50 a pound. Now we have seen uranium production pick up in the North American companies like Cameco, for example, over the last 2 years as a result of this price increase. But have we seen the price increase enough to incentivize full production of North American mines?
Again, David, the price is a function of supply and demand. So what we've seen is the demand for uranium has gone up with new uranium power plants being built. The consumption of lithium has gone up. And the reason we saw that price increase was one, the consumption and the demand for lithium went up, but we also some restrictions on supply from Russia. Russia was a big supplier of uranium, and that restriction in supply caused the spike. We've seen some increase in supply by miners upping their supply, but that's limited, and we do need new sources of uranium, and that's why we've seen this spike in price being held up in that $90 to $100 range.
Do you think the price will stabilize at this $90 to $100 range, or do you expect more volatility either up or down?
Again, David, if we look to the expert who forecasts the supply and demand, there is a shortage of supply predicted for uranium. So I believe the price will stay. And at the end of the day, for any mining or any business venture to be economic, there has to be a price that is profitable for any operations, and we'll find that medium.
So let's talk about James Bay. You mentioned James Bay being a significant deposit. How significant is this discovery? Tell us first about the size and the scale, and we'll get into why you're operating there.
David, myself, I was an early investor in a company called Patriot Battery Metals. They have a big discovery on their Corvette property in James Bay. The Corvette property is now 100 million tons proven resource, but it's expected to be one of the largest discoveries in the world of hard rock lithium. Again, that's not documented yet, but the expectation is it will be. And with that, James Bay has become the hotbed of hard rock lithium exploration. Some even call it has the potential to be the Saudi Arabia of lithium. And Corvette discovery by Patriot is one. Winsome Resources also has a discovery, and there's a lot of early stage new discoveries that are coming up in
Do we
James
have
Bay.
an assessment as to the size of the deposit inferred or indicated?
I believe that an estimate or what they're calling for is that 300 million tons is not out of the range for Patriot Battery Metals to hit. And this year, even as early as last 2 weeks, they've been reporting phenomenal results on their drill holes.
So what is Hertz Energy's involvement with this James Bay deposit?
David, when I was an early investor in Patriot, as they started making discoveries, I started acquiring mineral rights around the same area. Some of those mineral rights I sold off to other companies in Canada or Australia, but we kept two district scale projects that are in Hertz Energy, and that's what our James Bay portfolio is the ACDC project next to Rio Tinto in James Bay. And we also have a second district scale project called the Snake Project, which is in the middle of two new discoveries.
So is Hertz Energy affiliated with Patriot Metals right now?
We are not. The only affiliation we have is we share their early geological team who's doing the work for us, but we're in the same location as the Patriot Battery, similar geology as to their discovery.
Okay, well, tell us more about Hertz Energy and how long it's been in, I guess, operation, how long you've been exploring.
With Hertz Energy, we started our projects last year. Unfortunately, James Bay had a big fire season where exploration was almost it didn't happen last year because the fires restricted that. We only got to our property for 2 days at the end of the year. We raised $1.5 million in what we talked about flow through government incentive dollars to go explore. And we're going to be hitting the ground this year, going to do exploration on our projects, the ACDC and the Snake project, starting in June.
You raised 1.5 million. How much cash do you have on hand right now?
We have the $1.5 million, which is flow through, which is dedicated simply for exploration in James Bay, and then we have about 700,000 in working capital.
And how do you plan to deploy this capital?
The James Bay is we're restricted. We can only use it for mineral exploration, so that's dedicated there. The other the hard dollars, as they call it, we've got it allocated for some of our uranium projects, which we'll talk about later. But we're also looking to divest of some of our other holdings and raise capital.
Hertz Energy is operating in the James Bay region. Is there a particular reason why you chose, let's say, Canada to operate in and not, let's say, another jurisdiction in the US, for example?
Well, David, we came aware of the lithium discoveries in James Bay. So being a Canadian mineral exploration company, and our expertise is project generation, go out and acquire mineral rights from the governments. And we were able to do that and secure those projects at an early stage.
What's your long-term plan here? Are you planning to merge with another company nearby? Are you planning to be sold off? Are you planning to go into production yourself?
David, we're a mineral exploration company. Our goal is to go find an asset, make discoveries, and sell those discoveries off to bigger companies who will put it into production. We're not a mining company, we're an exploration company. And that's where the biggest wins come. Mineral exploration is a high risk and a high reward. If we make a discovery, the rewards are phenomenal. As we saw, Patriot went from 16 cents to $18 last year on their discovery.
Well, investors are interested in understanding the management team. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional background, and some other members on your management team right now.
David, I've been a capital markets a deal guy, as you would say, since 2008. I've done commodities. We've also done incubation of startup companies in technology. And our business model is to incubate companies, take them public to fund the projects, and then let the companies go on their own, as we did with some of our past incubations. And in terms of geological team, we have DeRouge Geological. They were the kind of people that had the property that since became Patriot Battery. They're doing our geological work for us. So we believe we have one of the best teams that knows James Bay lithium discoveries. And then we've got a full contingent of back office support with CFO, legal, and all that's required for a public company.
Do you have any drill results to report to us?
We are early stage, David. We're just hitting the ground in June for James Bay. As I said last year, we couldn't get onto the ground because of the fire restrictions. And we're hoping to have discoveries and drill targets defined this year.
Why do you have also a uranium component? I mean, most early stage discovery projects that I've talked to at least are focused on just one asset.
David, as I said, we're kind of an exploration company. We can generate our own projects. So when uranium price saw an upsurge, we had the ability to go out and source and identify some uranium targets, which we've acquired for Hertz Energies at low cost based on our targeting and identification. So we have two very strong uranium projects that we believe we've acquired without any dilution to Hertz Energy shareholders.
Where are these projects?
We have one in Nunavut, Canada. It's called the Cominco Project. And then we've recently applied for 2 uranium permits in Namibia.
Okay, that's interesting. It's very far away. Why Namibia?
Namibia is one of the top countries for producing uranium, David, and it's also one of the most secure, politically secure, and mining-friendly countries in West Africa. So that's what took us to Namibia. We engage with a geologist that knows the uranium well in Namibia, and she's helped us make the applications for two very strong targets.
Again, early stage applications pending, haven't
Yes,
drilled yet, correct?
yes.
Okay. All right. Well, Cal, it's great catching up with you. Where can we follow your company's developments, keep up with the news?
David, we're a public company where we report everything that's material on a regular basis with news releases. Just before we go, I just want to reiterate to investors and your listeners, we are a lithium focused company with our James Bay focus, but we've acquired a portfolio of uranium projects, and we will remain a lithium company. Our goal is to do some work on our uranium projects and spin those out into a new entity, which we're hoping will be called your Hertz Uranium, and give Hertz Energy shareholders stock in that new company.
Okay. Well, actually, on that note, are you interested in any other minerals? Copper, um, zinc, gold?
David, with Hertz Energy, we're strictly critical minerals. We're going to stay
Okay.
focused on lithium, and we'll spin out our uranium assets into a new company.
Great. Well, we'll put the links to your website down below, so make sure to follow Hertz Energy there. Thank you very much for your time today, Cal.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me.